You're listening to NGSC Sports Radio. Hear us live on ngscsports.com, where you can get awesome analysis for all things sport. Or check out our podcasts on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, iTunes, TuneIn, and much more. For our latest videos, head to NGSC Sports YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at NGSC Sports and like us on Facebook. NGSC Sports. We never stop.
That doesn't suck. Two very clever actors finding a dynamic in an improv that they just stuck with and played and turned into a thing.
I'm going to disagree. Thanos is my favorite comedic character. I think throughout.
He's hilarious.
What is this?
I was like, yeah.
Oh, you
John
remember
says when Thanos said nothing, one of the galaxies. That was deleted, of course. I'm not an idiot. I know it wasn't the fun.
Are they
when he gets
talking?
actually mad, this is the whole thing.
This sounds like the darkest timeline of the podcast.
It is. It's episode 10 with Joe Russo.
Oh, that's
Yes.
what would he know about Marvel movies?
Jeez, I don't know. Maybe one or two little itty bitty things.
Oh man, it's crazy.
How great is that? Joe Russo's like a hero to us. I mean, the dude did the Marvel movies plus Community. I mean, come on.
Yeah, imagine watching the start of Community and thinking that guy is going to make some of the biggest grossing movies in the history of cinema.
And they're going to star Ken Jeong.
Yeah. Oh, if only. If only. I forgot.
How far have you gotten into the darkest timeline?
I finished the Annie podcast, the Allison Brie podcast, which was so funny that I have that episode loaded and queued into my YouTube playlist to go back and watch, because there was things she was saying, like talking about playing with the banana, that I'm like, no, I have to actually see this at some point. So I have that. So I'm definitely in episode 6. How far am I into episode 6? That's the question. I'm about halfway through episode 6 with Gillian Jacobs.
Well, this is episode 10.
Okay. Yeah, I am a ways away. But...
I would like to thank you. I would like to thank you for turning me on to it, and then I just completely blow you out of the water. I'm like, my God, will you hurry up so we can talk about it? Jesus.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
As Joe McHale keeps riffing and or keeps bidding in this one, stop spoiling. I haven't seen it. So you haven't seen it? No, I'm going to watch all of them back to back to back to back to back to back to back.
He will die. I did notice that they did come out with a new one, because I know that was a question we had last week. Was what's going on with that? And hey, new one came out. And and spoilers, it's with somebody that shows up in a later season of Community.
I'm unfortunately hearing too many things that are not really spoiling Community for me, but it's like, God dang it, I wish I hadn't known that.
Yeah.
Things I hear, such as Pierce's funeral. I'm like, wait.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Like, no, I haven't got that far. I'm almost through season 4.
Okay.
So am I literally on the last episode of season 4? Or maybe I've got 2 episodes left and I just couldn't stay awake anymore last night.
Yeah, season 5 is interesting. I think season 5 is pretty good. It's definitely weird in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not the way season 4 is weird. Season 5 is weird for very different reasons.
Well, season 4, I found out that it wasn't the main dude doing it that season.
Yeah, what's his face? Shit.
Yeah.
The creator.
Yeah.
Dan Harmon. Yeah, Dan Harmon got
apparently
fired.
He was gone he was gone in season 4, and season 4 has been a little off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good, don't get me wrong, because especially when you watch it, when you're kind of binge watching it like I am, and back to back to back to back to back.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much has changed, but there are definite it's like season 4 is like not quite. It's good, but it's not quite like flowing like the rest of it did.
I think, and I'm going to go back and just quickly scroll through the episodes. I think the only terrible season 4 episode is the one where they go like up in a hot air balloon and they're all sock puppets.
Yeah, I was kind of like, well, I gotta get through this one.
Yeah, that episode was kind of garbage. The rest of them are like pretty okay. Conventions of Space and Time, when they go to the Inspector Space Time convention, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, right.
The German
invasion.
Eventually,
the Dean is like just completely come into himself.
Yes,
that's something he would say, by the way.
Yes,
and so he kind of saved the puppet episode to me.
That is, yes, with his very long nose. The Christmas episode is pretty good, where they tie up Professor Cornwallis.
I think that's a lot. Was that the last one I watched? That was very funny.
Then like the last couple of the season are pretty good. Even the finale is a little weird, but it's still okay. Like season 4 is not bad. You will hear it referenced in show as the gas leak season. Because it basically, that's the explanation. There was some gas leak on campus, and that's why everybody acts weird. That's the explanation given in show. So it's really good though. Season 5. I also noticed, because I went back and just been watching episodes here and there. I went back and watched, I think it was the season 2 one, where they do the presidential debate sort of thing, where Annie eventually shows Joel's or Jeff's. Was it Real World audition tape?
Yes.
There is a reference that Annie makes, and I have forgotten she makes it in this episode. She makes a reference to Stopping the Ass Crack Bandit, which you may have heard come up on the podcast. I think it comes up.
I've heard it on the podcast. I'm just kind of waiting for this ass crack bandit.
That's a season 5 episode.
Gotcha.
And you actually might really like it, because you like 7 and those kind of movies, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, then you'll like that episode. It's basically 7 and other David Fincher movies. It's very.
So one thing that I really liked that I picked up on this past week was when they played the video game for Pierce's father's fortune.
Yes.
And well, you know what's his half brother's name?
Oh fuck. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, all that matters is as soon as I saw it, I had like a mark out moment, because that's fucking Gus Fring from Breaking Bad.
That's right.
That is like one of the great television villains of all time, and it's like, oh shit, it's Gus Fring. You know, who's he gonna have murdered? And it's like, oh wait, this is Community. He's not actually murdering anyone here.
There's actually a few Breaking Bad people on that appear on this show.
Oh yeah, man, there's people all over the place. And now I find out that like Abed's like girlfriend now is freaking Brie Larson.
Oh yeah, that's right, Brie Larson. I always forget that that's her, the coach.
I just saw her, and I was like, I was sitting there. I watched that one literally last night, and I'm like, I know who that is. I know who that is, but I wasn't like, I've got to go find out who it is.
Yeah.
And then literally on this episode 10 of the Darkest Podcast, they make a comment. They're like, yeah, you know, Brie Larson plays Abed's girlfriend for a couple of years. I'm like, that's exactly who the hell that was. That was Brie Larson.
Yeah.
Which, of course, a few weeks ago on this show, I kept trying to say Allison Brie, and all I could say was Brie Larson. So, Jeffrey.
Jonathan Banks, who...
Yeah, I'm waiting to see him. Because another show that I'm watching at the moment, I've been watching for a while, is Better Call Saul.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And of course, he's a big character in Better Call Saul. He's one of the main characters in that. So I like Jonathan Banks. He's a very scary man.
Yeah, Jonathan Banks comes in season 5. Not that it spoils anything, but he comes in for a bunch of episodes.
I was kind of wondering where he was.
Well, and then in season 3, you have, and I forget the actor's name, but it's the guy from The Wire. Is their biology professor?
Omar.
Yeah,
it's Omar, dog. Omar's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a teacher. Yeah, it's great, man. This show has so many good little drop-ins.
And real quick, and then I promise everyone we'll talk about soccer after this.
I'm kind of waiting to see where this whole like Chang is a secret agent or whatever is going.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Kevin.
Yeah. It totally gets resolved. It does get resolved.
I would figure it would, but yeah, I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And I need to see it at least one more time. The Chang Glorious Bastards.
Oh yeah, that whole arc, and it all starts off with the Law and Order episode, where their yam gets destroyed, and
Yep.
that episode. I think more than any other one, I go back and watch that one because it's just so spot on for being what it's parodying. And one of the best parts about it is the episode name. I don't know if you caught on because it took me like a couple episodes to realize where the name of the episode came from. The name of the episode is Basic Lupine Urology. And I was like, what the hell does that have to do with the episode? And then it finally clicked. Lupine is talking about wolves. Urology has to do with your penis, aka your dick, aka Dick Wolf, who created Law and Order and its many spin-offs.
Wow.
Yeah. That's where the name of that episode comes from.
Wow. It's magnificent.
It's great.
They have way too much time on their hands.
It's so good.
So that's done it for this week's community review.
There you go. And that'll kick us
All right,
right
Ed, see you next week.
Yeah, that's basically the end of the podcast.
Spoiler, good night, Atlanta. Maybe forever. We'll see. Anyway.
Oh, man. Welcome, everyone, to the Foreign Affair Podcast, episode 319, excuse me. My name is Edward Green. I am joined, as always, by Colin Crime, Wes Bradshaw. Premier League's back, everybody. Finally, 100 days since our last game. You could not write a script like this, and if you did, why would you do that? That's really mean of you to do that. But hey, Premier League.
They hate Arsenal as well.
Oh, this is true Arsenal goodness in this podcast. We will, of course, be talking about the return of the Premier League. One match a little more than the other because the other one didn't have a whole lot going on except for one like really big bad blown call. Other than that, Premier League's back. We'll talk about that. We have a little bit of news and notes to get through, and of course, this we'll see how much, but probably most of what we just talked about will be the Watch 4. We might touch a little bit on it in the actual segment, but other than that, that'll be kind of that. And yeah, it's going to be a great podcast. As always, podcast is presented by NGSC Sports at ngscsports.com. We never stop. Unlike Major League Baseball. Boom! Got him! Here we go. So, hey, maybe it'll come back one day. All right. Match week 28. Let's end it right here. Get these matches out of the way, and we can head to match week 30. These were catch-up matches that did not get played for various reasons due to cups and whatnot. So first one, Aston Villa, Sheffield United kicked things off with a 0-0 draw. Trust us, it happened. There was apparently not goal line technology used in the park, and Aston Villa probably should have won. But, things happen, and hey, that's more fun to discuss than Corona, so good on you, Premier League, for giving us something to complain about. But on to the big match of the day, Manchester City versus Arsenal at the Etihad. Empty as always, very quiet. They made the right decision to not pipe in crowd noise into the stadium.
Couldn't even fill up the video board with people watching.
That's a great picture. For anybody, where did you find that? Just
somebody put it on Facebook.
Okay, so go look on Facebook or search for it. Yeah, it was just a picture of they had some video screens by each of the goals at the Etihad. And on it was like mini windows of people watching on Zoom or some other social conferencing platform. And not all the screens were the boxes were filled. So some of them just had to be the Premier League logo. Good job, man. Yeah. Just they're writing material for us at this point. Thank you. I appreciate it. But the big news is Manchester City and their return win comfortably at the end of the day, 3-0 over Arsenal. Raheem Sterling, didn't realize this, and there's a lot of stuff I'm going to have forgotten after these past 100 days. Raheem Sterling, his first Premier League goal of the calendar year, comes in the stoppage time of the first half as the ball took a deflection off Sideshow David Luiz, and Raheem was able to pounce on it in the box and put it in the back of Arsenal's net after City had been threatening for the last 20 minutes of the match in that half. So they went up 1-0 there, came out. Kevin De Bruyne hit a penalty after Riyad Mahrez was taken down in the box, again, by Sideshow David Luiz, who was then given his marching orders with a straight red card. And Arsenal was down to 10 men. Phil Foden added one in the early moments of stoppage time, the 11 minutes of stoppage time, thanks to multiple injuries that had taken place. Not so joking news. One Manchester City player, Eric Garcia, did have a head injury, had to be taken off. So hopefully he is okay. They did the right thing though by getting.
That's one of their young guys, like really for the future, who they're really excited about. Eric Garcia,
and he played well. Hopefully everything goes okay with him. The right call to take him off the pitch, especially at that point. It was 2-0 in the waning. I think around the 80th minute or so. And so good on them. Even though the City had to go 10 men the rest of the way because they'd already used all their substitutes, which, by the way, they had 5 of.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you forgot about that, huh?
You have 5 subs and still run out of subs.
Yep, that's what happened. And Arsenal also kind of had the same thing happen to them. Now, that's because they had to use a couple early. Granit Xhaka got knocked out of the match after running into Matteo Guendouzi. So he had to come out in like the 8th minute. And then there was another player who had to come out, and I'm trying to remember who it was. Oh, it was Pablo Mari, who is the reason David Luiz was even on the pitch, because he also got injured. So what a fantastic, resounding return to the Premier League for Arsenal as they go 3-0. And Wes, clearly, City's not going to catch Liverpool, but they do have a lot to play for. You talk about them bloodying guys like Eric Garcia. There's still the Champions League, which we now have all the dates for starting in early August. When that picks back up, something tangible to play for there. So this, as somebody mentioned, this is going to be Pep kind of managing minutes, getting everybody back into game shape to make that big push for the Champions League in August. And with this first one out of the gate, granted it was only against Arsenal, but early returns so far good for the citizens.
I'm going to say, talking about with the Champions League coming up, I think for City, as we said, obviously they're not going to catch Liverpool. Mm-hmm. And personally, I don't think anybody's going to catch them for second either. Mm-hmm. And I guess we'll find out in July what their future in the Champions League is. But for them, I think it is a really big last 9-10 matches here in the league, because going into this shortened kind of packed-in Champions League, Liverpool's gone. City are the favorite to me.
Yeah.
City are that team. They're not going to have to play these 2 legs. Mm-hmm. They're not going to have to do this home and away. On any one day, City can run anybody in the world out of the building. Mm-hmm. I think City are your favorites on paper right now. And for them, I think this last 9-10 matches, I can't remember. They got 10, right?
Let me see. Everybody has 10. Everybody has 10.
Okay, so 11 matches for City to get themselves ready to try to make a run at the Champions League. Mm-hmm. I think they're in an extremely good position for that. And I think this is your ramp up to hopefully peak for a Champions League run for City.
Absolutely.
So I think it's very important.
And just to quickly remind people, and even for myself, because I had kind of forgotten, City will be playing their second leg match again. A set of second leg matches had already been played. This one had not been. This is against Real Madrid. City won 2-1 in the first leg in Madrid. So they have those 2 away goals that they'll be bringing back to the Etihad to be played on either August 7th or 8th in hopes of advancing. Right now, the teams that have advanced are PSG, Leipzig, Atalanta, and Atletico. Still also to play are, if I look real quick, Bayern Munich is going to beat Chelsea because they're already at 3-0. One of Lyon versus Juventus, and one of Napoli and Barcelona. And so I think you're right. This is about as wide open. If City can get past Real Madrid, this is about as wide open as the field's going to get for them. And sure, there's some tough teams left, like PSG, Atletico, Barcelona if they make it through against Napoli. Juventus does have that X factor in Ronaldo, of course, in the Champions League. But yeah, pound for pound, City are probably the best team still left in it, especially if they make those quarterfinals.
Absolutely. And I mean, you guys know I don't want to see City win this thing, but I think they're the favorite right now. We'll see. Just to touch on Arsenal real quick.
Of course. I was going to ask you.
What a match for David Luiz. 25 minutes. All it took him in 25 minutes was to give away 2 goals and get sent off. He is absolutely back in peak David Luiz form. And as I sent you earlier, if one player epitomized 2020, it's David Luiz.
I'm going to read this because I sent this to you too. This was from the match report. David Luiz is the first player to be sent off, concede a penalty, and commit an error leading to an opposition goal in a Premier League match since Carl Jenkinson for West Ham versus Bournemouth in August of 2015. David Luiz is also now has doubled his lead in penalties given away in the Premier League this season. He is now at 4 penalties given away. The next closest person is at 2 so far. So,
what a signing by the Arsenal.
Yeah. Also worth mentioning, because we did joke about this a lot in the lead up, both on pod and off. No Mesut Ozil in the 20 today for Arsenal. Yes, it is 20 now. But no Mesut Ozil in the 20. I did not hear anything as to why that would be, but that is an interesting omission, if not just for the actual name value of it. So that is something to think about going forward. Is how will Arsenal continue to play out the Ozil situation?
Tactical reasons.
Okay.
Says Mikel Arteta.
Oh, thank you, Arteta. So there you go. First day of Premier League back in the books. Do also want to mention, of course, we talked about last week a little bit. All the players wore Black Lives Matter on the backs of their kits. They also wore a tribute to the NHS over in England on, I believe, the front of their kits. So big stuff there. And continuing to show their support of those two things. Also, Robbie Earle made a big speech at the beginning of the NBC Sports broadcast today with Rebecca Lowe and the other Robbie. Sorry, Robbie Musto. You're the other Robbie in this situation. So go check that out. Do want to take a quick look at the schedule coming up, because again, it is a big, busy schedule starting this Friday, 1 p.m. Norwich versus Southampton, 3:15 Tottenham versus Manchester United. And speaking of good things the Premier League is doing, if you want to go actually feel good about Premier League players, go read about what Marcus Rashford's done in like the last week or so in terms of getting kids food over there in England. That is really good on him. So congratulations. I really hope he doesn't score the winner, although that pretty much is guaranteed against Tottenham. So hooray. But that's 3:15 on Friday. Saturday, 7:30, Watford-Leicester. 10 a.m. Brighton versus Arsenal. 12:30, West Ham Wolves. 2:45, Bournemouth Palace. Sunday keeps going. Newcastle-Sheffield at 9. Aston Villa Chelsea 11:15, and at 2 p.m. Merseyside Derby, Everton Liverpool. And with today's City win, it does confirm that Liverpool cannot win the title against Everton. So it will. I know.
It's like Arsenal.
David Luiz continuing to be the utter representation of 2020.
You jag!
Yeah, you jag. Monday, the Citizens will be back in action at 3 p.m. against Burnley. And then Tuesday, Leicester City versus Brighton at 1. Tottenham versus West Ham in a London derby at 3:15. Then Wednesday, 5 more matches, including at 3:15, the lone one in that slot, Liverpool versus Palace. If Liverpool do win the Merseyside Derby on Sunday, that one will be a title clincher, guaranteed. So there you go, 3:15 against the Eagles of Crystal Palace and Way Hodgson. As we do take a look quickly at that table, Liverpool still 22 points up on City. City 7 points up on Leicester, who are in third. Leicester 5 points up on Chelsea, who are in fourth. And Chelsea are 3 points up on United in fifth. Close behind them for that, what is probably the final Champions League spot in fifth place. Sheffield United at 44, Wolves at 43, Tottenham at 41, Arsenal at 40. The bottom of your heart, the relegation zone, West Ham and Watford right now on 27 points, both outside of it. Bournemouth on 27th in 18th place. Aston Villa's at 26. Again, big missed 3 points today with that no call that could have gotten them out of relegation for the moment. They sit at 26 points in 19th place. Norwich, last place, 21 points. All right.
Norwich.
Oh, poor Norwich. Not Timo Pukki. We need more Pukki. But that's going to do it for our match talk. So again, we'll have plenty of more matches to go over next week. There will be many coming up in this very short time period. Everything's pretty much going to be wrapped up in the next 5 or 6 weeks. So kind of gotta get going, then just start it up again. So we'll hit the news and notes now. And this I thought was an interesting story. And I'm just going to read the article headline here, and this is from Sky Sports. And I'm going to be very interested to hear your reaction, Wes. Liverpool goalkeeper Loris Karius insists he will get chances at Anfield. From the body of the article, Liverpool goalkeeper Loris Karius says it, quote, makes no sense to leave the club and believes he will get chances to impress next season. The goalkeeper is back on Merseyside after terminating his 2-year loan spell at Turkish side Besiktas last month. Of course, Karius hasn't played for Liverpool in an official match since the Champions League final against Real Madrid in 2018, when he had a couple of very unfortunate errors, and then he continued to make those unfortunate errors in preseason matches, and then they brought in Alisson, and everything got a lot better, crazily enough. So I appreciate the kids' moxie, I believe is something they would say. But Wes, this is an interesting decision, and I can't really see Alisson falling off a cliff anytime soon, so I'm not sure, besides cup matches, exactly what Karius plans to do at Liverpool.
So my feeling on this is that I believe Karius, part of it is I believe Karius is saying what he needs to say. Mm-hmm. Which is, hey, I'm back. I'm committed to this club. That's what you're supposed to say. It doesn't, I'm just ready to get the hell out of here. Nobody wants to hear that. So, I think he's playing the PR right. This is Loris Karius, who has made some PR blunders in his time. So I think for once he's kind of just playing it safe and playing the straight thing. Now, here's the thing. If Loris Karius really wants to stay at Liverpool, mm-hmm. We only signed Adrian to a 1-year contract. He's out of contract when the season's over. Mm-hmm. It's not like, I'll put it this way, you could have much worse number twos in the world than Loris.
Fair enough.
Now, the thing is, will Loris Karius' ego allow him to be the number two and know, this isn't like when he was on, when it was him and Mignolet where he had a chance. It's like, that you're not playing over Alisson. That it ain't going to happen. This is not an open competition. Come in, do as good as you want, as you can, but, you're not going to play over Alisson. For him, Loris is still a young goalkeeper, relatively.
Yeah, 26.
Really, when you think that keepers don't really start to peak till around 30. Mm-hmm. At least it's kind of that's kind of the train of thought. He's got a long time left to go. For Loris Karius, he could come back a year for Liverpool. He could be the backup. He could sit there. He could solidify things. He could compete every day in practice with arguably the best goalkeeper in the world, Alisson. And hell, on top of it, have a damn good chance to maybe, pick up a few trophies.
Sure. Yeah.
And then you come back, you maybe rehab your image a little bit at Liverpool for a year, and then the next year, you're closer to your contract being out. Whatever your price is somewhat affordable. Maybe then it's time to make a move somewhere. Especially if you come in and you play the cups and you look solid in the cups. I just, for him, I believe there are worse career decisions than spending a year at Liverpool at this point.
That's fair.
But I 100% just don't believe that I believe he's saying the right things, because it's not like he's sitting there thinking, I'll just come back and I'll wrestle the shirt away from Allison. No problem. I don't think he believes that. So.
Well, I mean, that totally makes sense. I understand completely. I do think it's interesting that he chose to terminate his loan spell. I do understand the idea of maybe that it was that Liverpool playing even as the backup would be a better growing experience, and as you said, learn over
real quick, because of course I keep up with Liverpool on a day-to-day basis.
Sure.
That you don't.
Of course.
There have been a lot of issues during that one.
Okay.
All of them not Loris Karius done. I mean, there was a time where Besiktas didn't pay him for like 2 months.
Yeah, Turkey does that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, there have been a lot of issues with that loan. That once again aren't all Loris Karius on the field caused things. So I think at the end of the day, it was turning into somewhat of an unhealthy situation for him.
Okay.
So when this came up and the chance to terminate that loan, I think it was just one of those, this is better for everyone. Mm-hmm. Not so much, ooh, man, maybe if I go back now, maybe I can get a Premier League winners medal. Nothing like that, I don't believe. And I have no thoughts that you will see Loris Karius anywhere near even the bench at Anfield in this run-in. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's not going to happen. If something happened to Adrian or Allison at this point, Kevin Kelleher would be the next. The youngster would be the next keeper in line, at least through the rest of this season. And then Andy Lonergan is our number 4. So you're not going to see Loris Karius, but I think for him, it is the chance to come on back and, start to at least reintegrate himself into the club. And I think really take a look and feel some people out and see, is there a future here for me, or is my best bet to go find somewhere to go?
Sure, that makes total sense. So we will see if he's able to do a little rehab on his image over there in England, and maybe after those couple years, maybe he'll be able to hook up with another club and be their number 1 in a better situation than he was in Turkey. We will see. Real quick, do want to mention, because we talked about this, I think about a month or so ago. It was almost exactly a month to the day. Callum Hudson-Odoi had been brought up on rape charges. Those charges have been dropped. So make of that what you will.
I mean, considering they've been dropped, I'm going to assume the young man is innocent.
Yep.
And, if that's the case, fantastic. More power. The last thing we need is, a young man of his obvious talent to lose basically this opportunity of a lifetime for him. I think it does say to him, maybe my decision making needs to get a little better.
Yeah.
So, hopefully it is a good wake-up call, helps him just mature a little bit more, and he can go on and have this career, which is so promising.
Yeah.
And is able to fulfill it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully this is a big learning experience for him. Lastly, and this is more back on player news, news came out that one player who is pretty important for the Cherries as they make their run in to hopefully secure staying in the Premier League for another season. Ryan Fraser will not be signing a short-term contract extension with the club. Now, Ryan Fraser has been, the subject of many transfer rumors. I know Tottenham has been signaled to be sort of in the market for him, which means about 2 days before the transfer window closes, Levy will lowball Bournemouth, and then 4 hours before it closes, they'll finally get a deal done. But this, I think, drew a lot of ire from a lot of fans and even some pundits saying, well, why won't you sign with the club? Why won't you keep going and try to help this club, secure promotion and try to help them stay up when they've done so much for you in your career? And I gotta say, like, I think it maybe feels a little different being over here in the States and not being over there. But I feel like at a certain point, especially if this whole, and we'll get into baseball in a little bit here, if this is taught us anything, it's players to an extent do just have to look out for themselves. You only have a finite amount of time to really make money. And I understand that if he isn't comfortable and if he doesn't want to sign an extension and he wants to be out there on the open market, then more power to him. It sucks. It sucks for Bournemouth. I want to see Bournemouth stay up, but I'm completely standing behind any player, especially in this situation, who just wants to, do their own thing and go with it from there. But I'm a little surprised because, Wes, we talked a lot about back in the hazy period when we didn't know what the hell was going to be happening with the Premier League at all. What would happen with these contracts that were out technically at the end of June? And we've seen some people sign extensions. I remember a week or two ago, you talked about Adam Lallana signing a short-term extension to stay on with Liverpool through the remainder of the season. So I'm curious, do you have any thoughts on guys like Ryan Fraser, who could be in line for a big move and a big payday, saying, no, thanks, I'm not going to sign even a minor extension with the club?
I think, here's the difference in Lallana and Fraser at this point. Lallana's going to win the league.
Sure.
Lallana has had a really successful run with Liverpool, which is culminating at a great time for them. And, it's kind of like Claude said, who would want to miss this party?
Yeah.
For Ryan Fraser, different circumstance. There is no glory to be had in Bournemouth right now, other than maybe staying up.
Yeah.
For him, and here's another thing, Lallana has had his big move and his big payday. Ryan Fraser is about to get his move and payday. Mm-hmm. So, it would be devastating right now for Ryan Fraser to tear an ACL.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't say I blame Ryan Fraser. Here in America, we do put a big emphasis on team. We're going to talk about baseball. I mean, you can look at just baseball through time of guys who have, let's say pitchers especially, who have taken the ball when it was not in their best interest health-wise to take the ball. Oh, yeah. But it's the deciding game of the College World Series. It's you're in high school and it's the state championship series and you pitch game one, but damn, game three they need 2 innings and you're the stud. Can you get it out? Can you go throws? Can you give me 50 pitches? And we really romanticize those guys. We love the Warriors. We love those guys who, will take that cortisone shot in the knee and go play to get his team into the playoffs, on the football field. Michael Jordan, who has the flu, can't keep his head up and goes and just has an amazing game in the NBA Finals. We idolize those guys and idolize those moments. So to us, it's kind of this like, hey man, you don't, it's all about team and, it's this and it's that. But when we come at it from the viewpoint of professional athlete, I can't sit here and make a definitive statement of what Ryan Fraser should do based on what I think. Because, I'm of that thought of, you go out and you help your team. But at the same time, I don't have millions of dollars sitting in front of me that could go poof in the next 6 weeks if somebody comes in with a hard challenge on me.
Right.
When I have the option to sit back and just wait for somebody to pay me next. And it's not like I'm losing a chance to win a title or get into a Champions League spot or anything like that. So I really see it from both sides. But as a fan of Bournemouth and as one of his teammates, I can kind of sit there and be like, you know what, man, you're kind of leaving us high and dry right now, and that's a little shit. That said, I'm sure he has plenty of teammates who are sitting there like, dude, do what you got to do, man. We understand. So at the end of the day, Ryan Fraser, the only person at the end of the day whose opinion really matters is his opinion of himself. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm not going to jump down the guy's throat. I wouldn't have jumped down Adam Lallana's throat if he had decided not to extend on with Liverpool. Of course, another difference is, Adam Lallana is a bench option for us, where Ryan Fraser's one of, if not their best player right now.
Yeah.
Even though I do believe David Brooks is coming back, so that could be a nice little boon for him. But it's really a catch-22 for him. Especially when you're not really having much of anything to play for right now.
Yeah.
Other than, I guess, survive.
Yeah, and like one of the things that I think makes it really hard, and hard over there is there's a lot more. One, there's a lot more tribalism, a lot around teams. It's a lot like our college sports here, like college football and stuff like that. And we talked about in the podcast. The second thing is, there are actual stakes to Ryan Fraser not playing. If a pitcher wants to shut it down, because his team is heading for a last place finish on the Baltimore Orioles, well, hey, your team's getting a high draft pick next year. That's all that's going to happen.
Yeah.
In here, you might be going to the championship. And I do understand that difference, but I also am completely aware that it's Ryan Fraser's decision at the end of the day. And if he thinks that's best for him, then do it, man. And it sucks for Bournemouth that they're gonna miss him for however many matches don't get played in June. But that's kind of the times we're living in. We're trying to make the best out of bad situations for everybody. So. So that is that. Did want to point this out, and that was kind of our soccer talk in news and notes. This was on a Gallup poll, and I wanted just to bring it up, especially with news coming out today that hey, maybe Major League Baseball and the Players Association are close to actually getting a season ready to go of some like indeterminate amount of games. But just to highlight how important it is for the sport to actually get back out there. And this data is up to 2017, unfortunately, so we don't have any more beyond that. But this was a Gallup poll done, and the question was asked, what is your favorite sport to watch? And the most recent data had football as the highest at 37% of Americans. The next highest was basketball, or the NBA, at 11%. Then baseball was at 9%, and soccer is at 7%. So one thing to take away is that even with as crazy as the NFL has been, and even though it's dropped 6 percentage points from its high in 2008 when it was at 43% of respondents answering, it's still more than triple the second highest. Baseball is on a downward trajectory very clearly from this graph, and I can actually send this to you so you can also kind of see what I'm talking about here. But the fact that soccer is catching up to it, the fact that other sports are catching up to it, shows just how important this is. And and how damaging it could be to not have a season, especially going into a year where after 2021, the CBA, a collective bargaining agreement, expires, and they could be looking at a strike. So this is incredibly important timing for Major League Baseball to get a product out on the field safely. I'm not sure if you've gotten that picture yet, Wes.
I did. I'm looking at it right now.
So you can kind of see like how precipitously baseball dropped when it was, the big majority in as late as the 1960s, then got passed by football and has been on a pretty downward trend since. Intersecting a lot with basketball, and you also kind of see the rise of soccer a little bit as well in that. But this is a bleak picture for professional baseball in the United States of America. So,
well, and right now, when baseball, summer is baseball.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And right now, when you've got the time, you've got basically a captive audience who's just begging for sports, begging for something. Right now, baseball should be taking every advantage of being the only game in town with a sports desperate, a sports desperate culture out there.
Mm-hmm.
And baseball is just, for lack of a better term, dropping the ball.
Granted, it's easier, but golf is back. And has actually been doing some decent numbers. NASCAR is back. So, and the NBA might be coming back next month. Who knows about the NFL? And the NCAA has given the go-ahead for teams to start being able to introduce practices at the beginning of July. This might be a real big blow to Major League Baseball. Even if they do eventually get the product out, it might be too late, and there'll be plenty of other things at that point, plenty in quotation marks, to watch at that point that a lot of people just get turned off by this. So it's a bleak picture for Major League Baseball, which is always great to think about. Definitely doesn't depress me at all.
Good times.
Good times. All right. Speaking of good times, is there anything else? We talked about a lot in the beginning. As we hit the watch 4 here, is there anything else you want to talk about community, or anything else you have me watching in the week that was or the week that will be?
Community's just community. It's great, man. It's great, man. Also, I mentioned Better Call Saul. I'm right near the end of, I think, the 3rd season of Better Call Saul. God, that's a really good show. I mean, if you were a fan of Breaking Bad, it's obviously a spinoff of their dirty lawyer in Breaking Bad. You get a lot of background on the Jonathan Banks character. Has its own separate little storylines. Michael McKean plays the brother of the guy who will become Saul Goodman. Mm-hmm. And Michael McKean's just a fantastic actor as he is.
Yeah, a lot of range.
Oh my God, he is so freaking good in this show. I mean, it's like you equal parts feel sorry for him, roll your eyes at him, and are disgusted by him at the same time. Mm. And it's like, even when you really don't want to like it, there's a part of you like, it's not that he's the bad guy, it's just this is how he is. But Michael McKean just plays it so freaking well.
Oh, yeah.
So freaking well. You're getting some background to the Gus Fring character. Oh, I really enjoyed Better Call Saul. I try to take it slow because I believe they're actually in or just finished the last season. So it's obviously not on Netflix yet. So, I can't get it so far. I messed up on that with The Good Place, and I was just waiting.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So, the Better Call Saul, it's really good. If you enjoy Breaking Bad and you need a show, definitely check out Better Call Saul.
Trying to think if there's anything I watched or am looking forward to watching. I don't think so. I will say, one name producer Jackie and I played a a video game this past couple days. Very short game called, trying to think of the name, The Spectrum Retreat. That's what it was called, The Spectrum Retreat. Interesting game. If anybody out there likes Portal, that series, or any games like the Talos Principle, games like puzzle games like that, you'll probably like The Spectrum Retreat. Totally got jump scared once. That was on me, and which, of course, I'm a little girl, so jump scares freak me out. And then they don't freak out one named Producer Jackie, but my screams freak her out. So, like, what happens doesn't bother her, but then she jumps when I jump. So it's a second degree jump scare for her. So a lot of fun there. But yeah, it was a very interesting game. It gets dark. It gets really dark in some places. So yay, what a fun thing to play during quarantine. But yeah, still a very fun puzzle game. And so go check it out. It was on sale on the Nintendo Switch eShop. It was like $6.50. So much cheaper than most video games out right now. And I'm sure it's on sale in other places. So go check that out. So that'll be the Watch 4. We doing any wrestling this week? Anything happening?
No.
Okay. Real quick, I want to get your thoughts. I don't know if you heard any from the matches today. Did you hear any of the piped-in crowd noise? I know that was a very divisive topic on social media. I don't know if you had any reaction to it.
I unfortunately didn't get a chance to watch anything today, just due to, God, it was a day off. I didn't have anything planned, and I literally ran around all day doing crap. So I didn't get to watch anything. I am not seeing good reviews of it on the Twitterverse.
It was. I watched some of the highlights back, and it's definitely noise. It is in fact that. Arlo White talks about a lot on his Twitter. If you want to go far, and really, if you're listening to this podcast, you should absolutely be following Arlo White on Twitter, of course. But he talks about it on there. He seems to be a fan. I wonder how much that is him being an actual fan, and how much that is him just, not talking against his own company. But it was. I don't think it was bad. I just don't think it added very much, is what I'll say to that. So maybe they'll tweak it. Maybe they'll just completely do away with it. Who knows? But these are strange times, and people are going to try strange shit on broadcasts. So yay for experimentation. It's a lot of fun. But hey, that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. We'll be back next week. I assume, what? You and me?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Okay, cool. So we'll be back next week. Again, big match on Friday. Manchester United versus Tottenham. That is a big one for both those teams looking to make it to the Champions League for next season. A lot of talk about, Josie's got everybody healthy for Spurs. We'll see if that translates, to him getting some success now and having had a bunch of time to train the lads and really drill into them what he wants. Basically, he got his off season in the middle of the season for this 10-match stretch run. So we'll see how that works with Josie's charges. But that's a big one on Friday, and plenty of big matches this weekend. Again, if Liverpool wins the Merseyside derby, they can put themselves one win away from hoisting that trophy, which will be coming at some point. That would be, Wes, you did ask me on Twitter, because I responded to you, what will be the red card that finally ends 2020? And I wonder, would Liverpool somehow not winning the title be the red card that just ends 2020?
I think I'd be done.
Okay. Yeah, this is so definitely not gonna happen.
Yeah, I think I'd actually have to give up football. I'll be all right, fuck this, I'm done.
Oh boy. So not gonna happen. It's Liverpool's gonna win the title. Don't worry, everybody. It's totally gonna happen. And I'm definitely not jinxing them by saying it. But that is gonna do it for episode 319. It's gonna happen, folks. Shut This is not a perfect game. They've already lost once, so that's done. Can't jinx that. That's going to do it for episode 319 of the Foreign Affair Podcast, as always presented by NGSC Sports. You can catch them on the social media as well as us on Twitter as a collective. We are at AFA Pod. Wes, you are?
I'm at Wes Bradshaw 21.
And I am also at Edward Green. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube via our parent show, The All New Sports Show. And you can email us at allnewsportshow@gmail.com. You can also check out all our podcast providers, including Podbean.com, Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, the TuneIn Radio app, Google Podcasting, and the iTunes Music Store, along with Apple Podcasts. So, again, that's going to do it for this episode. We'll be back next week for episode 320. It's not 420, but it's 320, so it's only 100 episodes. Closer. Getting so close. We'll only be 100 episodes away from what will be a very lit episode of the Foreign Affair Podcast. Oh, boy. We jokes are the best. So plenty to talk about next week. Plenty of matches to go through. But until then, we will bid you adieu. But before we get out of here, Wes, anything else you'd like to mention?
God, what is there to add? I don't have any other sports going on. The Major League Baseball draft was last week.
Mm-hmm.
I think we may have touched on it a little bit. East Carolina had one player drafted, Alec Burleson, went in the, I believe, third round. Hell of a ball player for the Pirates. Hated I didn't get to see one more year out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we're at a time right now. Would we be at the College World Series?
Yeah, because I've been following Virginia Baseball's Twitter account has been retweeting things by the actual, I think, college baseball Twitter account. And they've been doing like, on this day in 2015, Virginia got a Game 1 World Series win from blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, I've been right about now, pretty much.
I think this would have been our annual watch Game 3 of the College World Series run, actually.
Yeah.
Which, we always enjoy that because, damn it, we love college baseball. Yeah. So, oh, man, that's been brutal. It's been brutal having college baseball this year. So, anyway, just, folks, go fire up your Twitter machine. Mm-hmm. Get on there. Join the stars of Major League Baseball. Yes. Hashtag tell us when and where.
There you go.
That's all we want, Rob Manfred. Just tell us when and where, and we'll play some, by God, baseball. Please just help save America, Rob. Yes. You're ridiculous. Just help save America.
Yes. That baseball will save America.
Baseball will save America. At least it'll save me.
There you go. That's as has always been demonstrated on this podcast. That's what it's all about.
There we go. It's all about Wes. So just make it easy for me. Just make my life better, please. Kay, thank you.
There you go. So for my Colin Crime, Wes Bradshaw, I am Edward Green. Thank you so much for joining us here on this episode of the Foreign Affair Podcast. We will catch you all next time. And until then, stay safe, wash your hands, and enjoy the football, because it's back, baby.
Good night, Atlanta. You guys need to just stay the hell home tonight.
Everybody should, to be honest.
Just seriously stay the hell home.
You're listening to NGSC Sports Radio. Hear us live on NGSCSports.com, where you can get awesome analysis for all things sport. Or check out our podcasts on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, iTunes, TuneIn, and much more. For our latest videos, head to NGSC Sports YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at NGSC Sports and like us on Facebook. NGSC Sports. We never stop.